So Zach Polanski went on the Jeremy Vine show with Carole Malone, and it was embarrassing. I was cringing so hard. Malone made a fool of herself. Now, I've picked two clips from the show, one of Nigel Farage being a fascist, and the other about legalizing drugs. Let's check out the first clip.
Was it right to say, on that show though, but the bit of the clip before we showed it was you saying to Zia Youssef, you're a fascist?
Well, the reason why we're surging in the polls and the reason why we're getting so many members is because if something walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, I'll call it a duck. And actually, Nigel Farage, when he worked in the European Parliament,
outrageous.
used to join forces with the Swedish Democrats. These are literally a Nazi party with roots with the far right.
Is that the
How
same?
dare you throw words like Nazi around? How do you even know what that means? People like you are you're just gonna get Reform more votes by talking like that. You know, you believe in your politics, Reform believes in theirs, and you cannot call them Nazis for believing in that because you just make yourself look cheap by
Well,
it.
rather than the faux
And you
outrage, I
cheapen
think we
the
should
word.
focus on the people who want to deport people of colour, who want to extend indefinite
They want to
leave to
deport
remain.
people who've come here illegally. It's not about their colour. There you go,
How do you expect people to
what's
come here
happening.
legally if there's no safe and legal route?
There are safe and legal routes. The people who are coming on those boats are choosing to do it that way, and they're doing it because they want to get in here to Britain to work, and they want
I mean,
to get
you're
in
not
here
a
for the
fascist, but you're absurd because 80% of
well,
asylum
you'd like to call me a fascist as well,
asylum
wouldn't you?
conditions are found to have
You would
legitimate
like to
reason.
call me a
But we
fascist
had a
because I
guy
don't agree
in
with
court
you.
today. Or
I didn't
yesterday.
say that, Ed.
You just said-
Did you not see the Farage case where a guy says, I'm going to kill Nigel Farage, shoot him, and he's
Exactly.
got a jail sentence now.
Totally unacceptable, but that's a
Could be
different
out in
issue.
2 years. Yeah, but when he comes out, he's probably going to stay here.
Yes.
Well, that's a completely different question. That's
But
about
why
people.
should he be allowed to apply for asylum here when he's threatened to kill Nigel Farage?
I think if people break the law, that's a different conversation.
should be thrown out.
The conversation I'm having with Carole is if people have done absolutely nothing wrong, they're fleeing war and persecution, they get on a
They
small
are
boat.
not fleeing
Why
war
would
and
you get on a
persecution.
small boat
The
unless
stats
that
say
was...
that 80% are not fleeing war and persecution. Stop peddling another lie.
Over 80% have a legitimate claim to seek asylum.
That's
here.
not the same as what you just said. You said that people are fleeing war and persecution.
Well, what's
They
a
are not.
legitimate claim, then?
They are the legitimate claim is what their lawyers tell them to say when they come across on the boat, and you know that. We all know that.
Well, what are their
Stop
lawyers trying to tell them
pretending
to
they're
say that there was
they're
war
all
and persecution?
fleeing war.
Okay.
You know,
I mean,
it's
this
just
is the
cliches.
absurdity of this anti-immigration argument.
This is cliches
and I think
you're
it's
spouting.
really destructive and divisive
all right.
for our community
And you are
and the
spouting
people who need our
cliches.
support the most.
You are spouting
No, I'm talking the
cliches
truth,
and
All right,
Carole.
guys.
Christ. First of all, look, I think Zack slightly missed the opportunity to say that his ancestors fled the Holocaust, right? And he knows what a Nazi is. I mean, Carole Malone going, how dare you use the term Nazi? I think Zack Polanski knows what a Nazi is probably far better than you do. I think he probably should have said at that point too, which is that my name is Zack Polanski, right? And yet the media attacked me. The so-called people who are so concerned about anti-Semitism attacked me because I reclaimed my name. They kept on calling me David Paulden. Yes, my name was David Paulden when I was younger, but I reclaimed my name. And the reason why my family changed their name to Paulden was because they were scared of anti-Semitism in this country. I've now reclaimed that name. And the media, especially the right-wing media, attacks me. So I don't think he should have been so timid. He should have gone straight back on the attack. Call bullshit on these numbers. She's like, 80% people come here. They don't need to come here. Like, where did you get those numbers from? He should have said, you're making shit up because you just want to fulfill your fantasy of being cruel to those who are desperate. But apart from that, though, I think he was still really good. I mean, he calmly explained his point across a barrage of angry nonsense. Look, she does not look good in this. But this is concern trolling from the right, and it's so pathetic. It's so transparent. Oh, a man said he wanted to kill Farage, and now the right wing are blaming people like Polanski because they're using the word fascist. I mean, did Carole say anything about the man who wanted to kill Jeremy Corbyn in Finsbury Park when he was Labour leader? What about all the viral rhetoric about Sadiq Khan? Now, I don't like Sadiq Khan, but I think he's faced a lot of abuse for being a Muslim. I mean, MPs such as Lee Anderson saying Islamists have control over Cannes and London, which, ironically, in reality, Israel has the ear of most of our politicians. So I do love it, right, when the right wing say Britain is becoming Islamified. Yeah, get on their knees for that Israel check. So they want the rhetoric toned down. I mean, maybe look at yourselves first. But the bigger point here are the policies, right? It reminds me of the people who lose their minds when you say genocide in Palestine. So many right-wing pundits are more outraged from words than a genocide. They're more outraged by using words such as fascists than the fascist politics that's creeping over here. A clue? it's because they agree with those politics. Although for Carole, she literally believes in nothing. So let's take a look at the next clip, and this is on drugs.
You are literally campaigning for vulnerable young people to be taking more drugs. You're advocating giving them free poison. You are advocating young people to stupefy themselves, causing possible brain damage. And what? In the name of a civil liberty, in the name of
Would they not be
freedom?
doing it anyway? That's his point. That
My big point is in Portugal they did this. Drug death reduced to 80%.
Oh, I'm so glad.
There is no evidence. There is no evidence that legalising something.
Stop.
There is no evidence that legalising something.
You don't get away with mentioning Portugal with hearing the truth about Portugal.
I was just finishing my point, Carole, despite you shouting me down.
Do not mention Portugal.
Okay, hang on.
I love that. She's like, oh, I'm glad you brought up Portugal. And then halfway through goes, no, don't talk about Portugal. I mean, she's unhinged, just shouting over him. And also, why was she so desperate to not talk about Portugal? That's because Portugal showed some success in drug reform. Carole isn't intelligent, right? She's not even a good rhetorician. Quite literally, a loudmouth rent-a-gob. It's embarrassing. Now, this might work on GB News, but not on this show. And once again, Zack at least tried to calmly dismantle her argument. But the war on drugs has failed. We all know that. Does anyone seriously think it's working? Look, if you're watching and you don't think that we should legalise drugs, do you think the current system is working now? Do you think that people are taking less drugs? Do you think there's less violent crime or any sort of crime linked to drugs? No. So we do nothing? Because that is the right-wing pitch. That is for people like Carole Malone. They'll say, just make tougher sentences. You know, that would deter them. A deterrent doesn't work as a blanket on all social policy. It may work in some cases, but when it comes to drugs, it doesn't work. Illegality gives power to the black market, right? The drug dealers and the criminals. The same with alcohol prohibition, right? How did that work out? People were killing themselves drinking bath salts. Tax it, regulate it. And I don't even need to go through these arguments. You all know them. Although, look, if you wanted to hear a really interesting conversation on drugs, check out my interview with Zoe Garber. I mean, you can actually be informed, unlike the corporate media. But in terms of Portugal, right, it's a complicated picture because when they first decriminalized a lot of drugs, it was very, very successful. It's sort of gone the other way a little bit, but there's a reason why. And that's because they haven't fully legalized drugs. Now, I thought decriminalization and legalization were very separate in their policy, but they're actually kind of the same. And this is what Zoe Garber basically told me. It's a very good point she made, which is that when you decriminalize drugs, you don't end it there, right? That's just the first step. You have to legalize it. So in Portugal, yes, there are still lots of videos and images of people taking drugs out on the street. And a lot of people don't feel safe. They don't like it. And of course, the right-wing media will use that and say, this is what Zack Polanski wants for Britain. Anyone taking drugs wherever they please. But it's not legalized, it's decriminalized. When you legalize it, you make it more like official, shall we say. That's what we mean by tax and regulate it. Like Amsterdam, for example, right? Amsterdam is done in a safe way. And by the way, people aren't smoking weed on the streets. I've been there. It's in these little cafe bars. And there's police there that will tell you to put it out or even fine you if you're walking around with drugs, right? It's not this weird fantasy that the right wing think it is. But when you decriminalize it, that's what can happen. So you've got to legalize it. But Malone is just purely emotion, right? She doesn't like it. It's icky for her. But feeling icky isn't good enough when trying to organize a society in an effective way. Facts and science should be your guide. I mean, this is just the right in a nutshell. It's all emotion. But is she really convincing anyone? Especially responding to a caller when the person said he was addicted to heroin. Right, and he said, I'm so happy that a prominent politician, Zack Polanski, is talking about the health issue of heroin. And she straight up blamed him. I mean, not only is she a dunce, she's also pretty nasty.
Why don't you just not become an addict in the first place?
Well, that's an absurd question.
Is it? Why is everyone absurd to you?
Because you're absolutely absurd. Because people don't choose to be addicts. That's the whole point. They are addicted.
Right.
No, they're not.
How can you not get this basic
principle? It's not an illness.
We need to turn to another subject.
No,
okay?
I want to talk about when you say it's an illness. A real illness is cancer or MS. Don't you dare compare that
Alcoholism.
to
Your mental
self-inflicted
health erasure is pretty offensive to people.
Sorry?
And like James that we just had, the call there.
So
I don't think James chose to be addicted. Because you've just said that
he
it's not
willfully
actually
took
an
drugs.
illness.
He willfully took drugs.
All right.
It's such outrage culture. Once again, the woke left are accused of being outraged, when in reality it's the soy woke right. People are like, oh, God, I'm so offended. I'm so angered. First of all, there's people watching this now. You've probably had experience of maybe being addicted to drugs, alcohol, smoking, or other forms of addiction. It's not always substance, right? And she's basically dismissing it, saying, oh, it's your choice. Really? It's your choice? If anyone like Carole Malone comes up to you, and especially if you've been struggling with addiction, and they say to you, oh, it was your choice to take it, tell them to fuck off, right? There are many reasons for addiction, many societal problems and policies that create negative externalities. I think austerity is one, right? Ripping up public services. Now, some might say, well, how does that help in terms of addiction, or how does that cause addiction? Well, first of all, I think that the only defense against addiction we have now is like the last resort. We'll send people to certain sort of clinics or organizations that help people who are very far down the road, but we don't have anything to stop it in the first place. And in my view, I think having a cohesive society that works for people, where we meet people's basic material needs, means they don't need to go down the road of addiction, right? If we provide housing, healthcare, decent jobs, then people can go on the straight and narrow. But the fact that we've had basically society be ripped up, thanks to Thatcherism, by the way, the public realm has been destroyed. We've had this ultra individualist ideology. People don't have a stake in society. If the state doesn't care about you and politicians don't care about you, how can you expect it to care about them or the state? Right? The state has left people behind. What do you expect? Look, there are many things that can push people into drugs and addiction. Stress, for one. And how does stress come about? Once again, if you're struggling to get a decent job, struggling to pay rent, housing, you completely alienate yourself from society. And this is how it can happen. It's not the only reason why. There are many other things too. But the fundamental point that people miss from this argument is that people take drugs regardless. People have taken drugs for thousands of years, by the way. It's not a new phenomenon. It's always existed. So the choice is, if you want to be grown up about this, the choice is, do you want someone taking drugs in a healthy environment where that drug itself isn't poisoned with so much crap in it because drug dealers are trying to make more money? Or do you want them to rot? And the only thing you do is lock them up, and then they get out of prison and they haven't addressed their addiction. And what's going to happen? No one gives them a job. So they go back to addiction and they get reincarcerated. At least, like, you could be listening to Zack Polanski and think, God, his drug policy is insane. This is ridiculous, legalizing drugs. Fine, but at least be open-minded. And people like Carole are not open-minded. They can't be like, look, I'm going to listen to your argument and I'm going to try and debate you and argue with you. No, she's like, you're disgraceful. You're comparing addiction to cancer. How dare you? She's not open-minded, she's clueless, and she's stupid. She's a rent-a-god mouthpiece. But Zack has been on her mind rent-free since this, by the way. She's been going around the newspapers saying that he's a dangerous man. Oh, he's dangerous. He's dangerous to the billionaires, the multimillionaires, the financial and political elite. He's dangerous to the legacy media and the people like Carole Malone who've grifted for so long, pushing bullshit right-wing talking points, and he's here to change the narrative. And guess what? Right? Drug reform is popular. Most people understand that the current war on drugs do not work. But basically, my assessment of this was another unhinged performance from the right wing because they're ever so outraged. They don't really bring their arguments to the table. They don't even calmly do it. They shout over people like Zack. And it's so transparent. People can tell who's the sensible one here and who's the deranged idiot.